I stood frozen, watching helplessly as my beloved Victorian home dissolved into smoke and ash. My insufferable neighbor, Lisa Reynolds, stood in her driveway, sipping her overpriced latte, a triumphant smirk on her face. She thought she'd finally won our years-long feud. What she didn't know was that I, a federal judge, had the power to unravel everything she'd built. The real question was how far she'd push before I revealed my true identity. That morning had started like any other on my grandmother's century-old porch swing, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint golden hues across the teal trim of our cherished Victorian. Then I saw her Lisa storming toward my mailbox, clutching an envelope like it was a weapon. I'd seen that look before, usually at her over-the-top neighborhood association meetings in her gaudy, over-decorated monstrosity next door. My gut tightened as she slipped the envelope into my mailbox, lingered, and snapped photos of my yard like she was gathering EVY Denke. Inside was a glossy NVY Tatan. To join her newly formed neighborhood association at do la 5,000 buy-in plus do la 300 monthly dues. The brochure showcased rows of identical beige houses with soulless mailboxes. Worse still were the attached demands: repaint my house in approved colors, goodbye teal trim, rip out my grandmother's wild, blooming rose garden, and remove the antique wind chimes that had lulled me to sleep since I was a child. From my window, I watched Lisa strut back home, phone pressed to her ear. "Yep, just delivered the last in VYTE," she chirped. "She'll have to join now. Hers is the only holdout on the block. Once we fix that eyesore, property values will skyrocket." Her voice dripped with fake sweetness. That night, I marched to her house in VY Tatayon in hand. Her doorbell blared, "Sweet Caroline," of course it did. She answered, wearing a neighborhood watch badge, her smile unnaturally wide. "I've reviewed your proposal," I said, my voice steady from years in the courtroom. "I'm declining. This house has been in my family for 3 generations. Its history isn't negotiable." Her face twisted. "You don't get it," she snapped. "This isn't optional. The association's already in place. You're surrounded." I pulled out old plat maps I'd researched. "Actually, my property predates your group. I'm not legally obligated to join. 20 years in law had taught me to come prepared." Lisa's cheeks flushed red. "This neighborhood's changing," she hissed. "If you don't play ball, things could get messy. Fires happen. Codes pile up. Fines too." I met her gaze. "Is that a threat, Mrs. Reynolds?" She stepped back, her smile returning like a mask. "Just a friendly warning. Old houses like yours so fragile. Fires, wiring, storms. Who knows?" Behind her, I saw her husband, Tom, watching from their window, phone in hand, his stance tense. Something about his stare unnerved me. I nodded and left, but her voice followed. "1 week. You've got 1 week before the board discusses enforcement." Back home, I noticed curtains twitching, neighbors watching, Lisa's new posse of rule followers. My instincts screamed this wasn't over. That night, I installed security cameras documenting everything. I'd learned long ago to trust my gut when it shouted, and it was roaring now. Lisa Reynolds had no idea who she was tangling with. The next morning, she was back, screeching under my window. "That teal trim's a disgrace, it's ruining everything." I peeked out as she led her association cronies on a morning inspection, snapping photos of my grandmother's home. Their whispers floated over. "Those wind chimes are way out of spec," one muttered. "Those roses 3 inches too tall," another added. Every day brought new, absurd complaints, orange warning letters taped to my door, citing violations that didn't exist before her association. My grandmother's rose garden, once a neighborhood gem, was now a nuisance. The teal trim, a tourist favorite, became their top target. One Tuesday, I caught Lisa measuring my grass with a ruler. 11.5 inches, she declared to her lackey, Susan, who scribbled furiously. "That's 3.5 over code." I stepped outside, coffee in hand. "You're trespassing on private property," I said calmly, knowing my rights. She smirked and kept snapping photos. The harassment escalated, landscapers roaring at 7 a.m. On Saturdays, anonymous code complaints weekly. I showed officials my historic property papers each time, watching Lisa seethe from her window. They played mind games to holding meetings outside my office, griping about certain properties, dragging the neighborhood down. My cameras caught their pettiness, dogs unleashed on my lawn, followed by Lisa's fake shock when I showed the footage. "Rufus would never," she gasped as her lab left another mess. The breaking point came at their annual block party. I wasn't in VY Ted, naturally. Lisa loudly proclaimed plans to revitalize the area. Some older homes, she said, glaring at mine, just don't fit our VY shown. I overheard whispers about my foundation, structural concerns. I stayed calm, documenting every move, every letter, every photo. When they aimed blinding security lights at my bedroom, I added light pollution to my EVY denke. Patience, my grandmother always said, was key. Then, late one night, my cameras caught two association members inspecting my property line, murmuring about easements. They were plotting something bigger. I wondered how long I'd wait before showing them who I really was. I never expected to catch Lisa and two board members sneaking around my yard at midnight, chemical sprayers aimed at my grandmother's roses. "What are you doing?" I called, phone recording. Lisa jumped but recovered fast. "Just helping with these invasive species," she said, spraying away. "Association rules ban non-native plants. Join us and we'd handle this properly." My blood boiled, but I stayed steady. "Those aren't invasive Ethery heritage roses from 1960. I have the papers." Her cronies shifted, but she pressed on. "Someone complained about the smell. And those thorns? A hazard." I flipped on the floodlights. "You're trespassing." Tom emerged from the shadow sexscope, thinking he could bully anyone. "We're just keeping standards," he sneered. "No one wants a jungle next door." I noticed Mrs. Carter, my elderly neighbor, watching from across the street. She'd been coerced into joining after similar late-night VOI sits, her rock garden now generic shrubs. The next morning, my roses were dead VOI brand petals turned black. But Lisa had slipped up, exposing their pattern of targeting holdouts. At the county records office, I found every resistant homeowner had faced accidents or violations until they sold. That afternoon, I hid high-def cameras in my remaining plants. That evening, Lisa paraded buyers past my house. "This'll be dealt with soon," she said loudly. "We handle difficult residents." The harassment intensified. Me mailbox toppled thrice, fake noise complaints, daily code VY sits finding nothing. My trash bins vanished, later found violating rules. I documented it all. They grew bolder, hosting meetings out front, pointing out flaws to newcomers. "This place drags us down," Lisa declared. But not for long. Then I caught them loosening my historic fence posts. My cameras recorded her saying, "Once these fail inspection, she'll pay thousands or join us." Reviewing footage, I noticed they'd photographed my electrical boxes and gas lines cataloging vulnerabilities. It hit me. This wasn't about roses or paint. I had to act, but not yet. What I didn't know was Lisa had already set her endgame in motion. My hand shook as I read the morning paper. I just sentenced a crooked CEO. Then my clerk, Rachel, burst in, "Your Honor, your house site's on fire." I shed my robes and raced home, heart hammering. Black smoke loomed 3 blocks away. I screeched to a halt. Flames devoured the teal trim, heat blasting me as beams groaned. Across the street, Lisa sipped her latte, chatting with her crew, smug as ever. Fire Chief Daniels approached. "Looks electrical, old wiring's risky. But I'd had an inspection yesterday, everything was fine." My cameras. I checked my phone blank. They'd cut out at 3 a.m., hours before the blaze. No accident. Through tears, I saw Tom and another board member blending into the crowd, their boots seen in my footage now dusted with ash. Lisa sauntered over. "Such a shame. If you joined, our safety rules might have helped." Too stubborn about history. I bit back fury. She didn't know my next move. A neighbor mentioned a land deal, posted minutes later. The fire was doused, but my home was gone. Windows shattered, porch charred, roof caved. Standing in the wreckage, I made 3 calls. FBI, state attorney, private investigator. Lisa watched, a flicker of unease in her eyes. "Good. My power wasn't in that house site was justice." Grandma said losing everything could fuel a fight. Staring at Lisa's smug face, I knew what came next. Rumors flew. Lisa claimed I'd torched my own home for insurance. I stayed silent, digging. My law school pal, now a real estate pro, found every burned home in 5 years sold to a shell company owned by Lisa's sister-in-law. Patterns emerged: harassment, then accidents. A former association treasurer, Maria, slipped me a USB drive over coffee. Her hands shook cooked books under Lisa's threats. It showed cash deposits post-fires. Tom, ex-fire investigator, had rubber-stamped them, accidents. My cameras caught developers at Lisa's plotting condos. She'd done this before 3 counties, same playbook, form an association, force sales, profit millions. I wired Maria for a sting. Lisa bragged about targets, electrical issues, and threats. Her downfall neared. My house was key to a highway expansion. She needed it for a shopping complex. Every complaint she filed tightened my noose. 6 months later, I stood outside the community center, robes in my briefcase, FBI wire on. Lisa's meeting began. She declared my burnt lot a nuisance for redevelopment. Objections, she smirked. I object, I said, striding in. Her smile faltered. Here to surrender? I spread photo of her on my property pre-fire bank records, text about accidental fires. Gasps rose. She stammered. Defamation. I donned my robes. Federal Judge Elena Carter. Case 2025 CR 142 U.S. v. Reynolds et al. RICO conspiracy. Her mug shattered. FBI stormed in. Tom bolted, tackled mid-step. I faced Lisa, collapsed in her chair. Criminals forget to check their targets. Handcuffs clicked. Neighbors cheered. Justice broke years of fear. At trial, Lisa paled, seeing me on the bench. Ivo Denke piled 15 fires, her on tape dousing my roses with gas. Tom flipped, detailing their scheme. Victims spoke, lost photos, ashes. Lisa got 25 years, her crew 15 each. She tried a property values speech. I silenced her. Now my rebuilt Victorian gleams, teal trim perfect, roses regrowing. Lisa's house funds VY Tim's, new neighbors host real community nights. Her mug sits on my desk, a reminder justice prevails. Sipping coffee in my garden, I know rebuilding beats revenge.